Hello everyone, Bridget Casey with Bridget Casey Designs here today for scrapbookpal.com. Today we are working with two amazing products from Honeybee Stamps, the Bud Vases, as well as the Lovely Layers Spring Greenery die set. Lots of awesome dies on there. We're also going to be using Best of Everything, the stamp and the die set to cut out our sentiment. As well, I pulled in brick wall and window slats 3D embossing folders from Altenew. I'm very excited to use those as I had a vision and those created it perfectly. So I have all of my dies there and I'm going to just put them on a piece of cardstock that is 5.5 by 8.5. And this is a piece of the Hammermill 80 pound. It is super smooth and lovely to Copic color on, which is what we are going to be doing today. So I'm just getting these all taped into place and then I will run them through my die machine. And I did run them through a few times because I have some extras. I've also run through the panels for the 3D embossing. So now that we have all of our parts ready, I'm doing our sentiments with the Stampwheel and VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. I'm just stamping twice. I forgot to treat my stamps, so I did have to stamp twice. And then I just stamp, rotate, and rotate. And I have two perfect sentiments. So once we have that done, we're going to begin by coloring our pieces. There is no rhyme or reason to this. I actually was inspired by a project I did recently using a different set with little leaves. And the reason I like doing this is you can kind of just go wild. So for my first layer, I'm doing YG01. Spring is coming and I was ready for some really bright green colors. So I'm trying to cover most of it, but I'm not covering all of it. On some of the dies, there may be some white spots here or there, but that's okay. I'm just trying to get some color down on. Now with the YG03, I'm going to go up the center where I believe it would be the darkest, and then I'm going to start adding some detail onto each of the leaves or the greenery as the case may be. So I'm going through all of mine and doing this on each of them. This looks like a frog finger to me. I had so much fun coloring these. So I'm going to still continue. I had a huge pile of leaves and there's no right or wrong with this. It's just a matter, just have some fun and get some color on there, get some definition put on there. And then once I've gone through and I've used those colors, I'll come in with my final, which is my darkest, the YG25. Then I'm adding just some detail. Again, I'm going up the center where I believe it would be darkest, and adding that detail, and then I'm adding some detail on each of the individual leaves or the little sprigs as the case may be. So I'm just giving you little sneak peeks as I go through. And again, have some fun with this. Normally I work darkest to lightest when I Copic color. When I do techniques like this, I like to start out with the lightest and make sure I get a good base put down, and then I will come in and add sparing amounts as the colors get darker. So I did use 3, so I will use the most of the first color, second least of the second color, and the least of the third color. So now I've gone ahead and I've die cut my little wicker baskets, and I'm coloring the edges in the bottom with the E29. And then I'm doing the same on the little solid piece. I'm doing it for both of my little baskets. These reminded me of my mom because my mom has ones like this at her house. Then we have E39. And again, I'm just extending out those colored lines. And finally, I will come in with the E17 and I will fill out the rest of the coloring. But my mom has these kind of wicker baskets at camp hanging on our what do we call that? We call it the deck. There we go. So these reminded me of my mom and I knew instantly what I wanted to do with this. I'm using my Lawn Fawn glue tube to add some adhesive to the back and then put the other panel down. Don't worry if you get a little wild with the glue as I did. It does dry clear, which is perfect because you don't have to worry about any extra that you may have gotten. Although I did try to take off as much as I could. So I have both of my baskets and now I'm just going to have a play. And I think that's the great thing about these dies as well, is there is no right or wrong. It's just a matter of making an arrangement that speaks to you in that moment. When I come back, would I make a different arrangement next time? Probably each time, it's going to be a little bit different. So that's the fun thing I think about these dies. So I did put some glue, and then I'm holding it because I don't, of course, want to put it down with wet adhesive on the back. And so I'm just kind of placing my greenery in there as I go, kind of holding it on the back. And then I'm going to trim off my extra little pieces. I'm sorry, I was a little out of camera. There we go. And then wipe those away because they may have had glue. Then once I knew I had most of my pieces done, I'm taking some of the thin 3D foam squares and I'm putting those on the back to really hold all of my pieces in place, as well as some on the bigger leaves on some of my greenery. Then I'll put that down into place. And I thought it was good. So I put my sentiment with the thin 3D foam squares as well. I put that down. And then I took off my other 3D foam squares and I put it down. And then as I was looking at it, I even put it to the side. I'm like, oh, yep, card done. And then I was kind of looking over at it and I was like, looks a little empty. So as I'm playing with my leaves here, I'm still looking at that card. Do you guys do that? So see, here we go. I'm like, okay, we got to fix this. So I trimmed that just to add a little bit more greenery, and then I will add a little glue and hook that in place. And then because of the way I trimmed the other one, I tried to put it upside down. That didn't work. So I just trimmed it so the leaves flowed, filled out my greenery, and I was much happier. This time I decided I was going to use the 3D foam squares to hold my pieces into place. So kind of worked better, kind of didn't. So I'll explain. So I'm putting some glue here to kind of hold stuff in place as I decide on something that I like. I got my tweezers and kind of held that in place as it dried, and then began adding more things in. And then I would just flip it over and glue where I could, when I could, so to speak, and then trim off any extra pieces. So if I were doing this not in a video, I probably would have done it a little bit differently. And I likely would have put double-sided adhesive sheets on the back of my little wicker basket there. Or I guess not wicker, but my wooden basket. There we go. I likely would have done double-sided adhesive sheets, and I think that would have made it easier to glue together, as well as easier to put my little floral arrangement, not floral, my spring greenery arrangement. There we go. I can't speak today, which is not good for doing voiceovers. And then I'm trying to fill it out because I remembered from my last card, it was a little empty in some sections. So I was trying to fill it out this time before I glued it onto my panel. So I'm holding another piece into place while I trim off the excess so it doesn't hang below my little basket. Then we will add adhesive on top of the thin 3D foam squares, bring that over and put that in place. Much happier with how much I have on there. And then I had one fern left, and I just wanted to show you how simple of a card you can make with one fern and one sentiment. Really, really super simplistic card, but really, really pretty card. So I added the Love You from the Versatile Greetings, and that completes that card. So we have 3 cards to share with you with this beautiful set. Don't forget to head on over to the scrapbookpal.com YouTube channel to like, comment, and subscribe. We can't wait to see you next time. Until then, happy crafting.